Corby, because you're wearing like light grey, when you were drinking your water, I thought you were drinking salt.
Your water?
Because he had a see-through bottle.
When you are drinking your water.
I only imbibe pure saline solution. I am the
God.
most hydrated.
Let me just take a sip of my Gren tea, and I'll introduce us.
Surely the best thing to hydrate. Well, I say the
It's
best
just water,
thing.
right?
Just buy pure water.
Pure hydrogen.
Oh no, there is.
It's essentially green tea is just flavoured water.
What? So is piss. I mean, what are you on about? I mean, everything that you put in water is essentially flavoured water.
That just FYI, that's why I'm starting the podcast. So
Good.
do your
I
intro
want the
now,
people to
Matt.
hear the truth.
Why does it taste of lemon?
You know what they
Hello.
say when life gives you lemons.
Don't
Piss it back out.
That's a horrible creaking, like what you hear in a haunting, but I'm just worried it's structural collapse. Anyway,
Is it just
let's
your
continue.
bones?
them bones, then. Oh God, no, my bones.
Oh god. Can I intro?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, and welcome to Fakt Vs Ficktion. It's another fact week this week, brought to you by me, Matt, the only sane man in this room, mainly because it's just me. And I'm also joined, as usual, by my colleague John.
Colleague. That's good. It's better than acquaintance. Not quite as good as friend. Let's continue.
You're slowly ranking up. You've been I was going to say you've been grinding, but no.
Been grinding relationship limit, yeah.
I'm also joined by Tom.
I am the most insane person in this room, but I am also the only person in this room.
I was
And then we
about
find out our rooms are connected, and then we have a
I was about to say bullshit.
We all
You're the
were.
only man in his room.
I know.
And of course, last but by no means least, Corby. Hello.
I am the most physical ghost in this room.
Yeah. I mean, fair dude. I mean,
Everyone processing if Corby is or not corporeal.
I was just picturing a ghost like doing weights.
That's just off to the side that y'all can't see, just behind the drum kit.
There's just a set
I
of
love
dumbbells
lifting.
going
I
up and
love the
down.
idea of a poltergeist that trains. It puts the effort in.
Instead of throwing plates from your covers, it's just uprooting the oven and chucking it out the window.
I was gonna say, it just reminds me of like Punchline when I spoke about the other week. He's like, yeah, you got to grind to get your spirit level up before you can lift heavier objects.
That's nothing more terrible than like a physically buff poltergeist that you can...
Oh, I thought we were gonna say there's nothing more terrible than grinding.
I mean, depends on what you're grinding and who it is.
Is it a skateboard in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2?
Is it a 50-50 grind? Yes.
That would be fun if, like, the more buff person you were in life, the more like shit you could move as a ghost. That'd be cool.
Or like trades over into ghost. Is that all life is? You're building up your ghost stats on your head.
Hey, I don't know about you, but I'm going to be prepared
this
when a
is the
skeleton war happens.
The Rock
gonna
is
say,
going to
this
be
is-
a
Why do you
very
think I've got
powerful
that?
ghost.
That's me. I'm going to get buried in that. I'm going to be a skeleton war. I'm putting
This
a suit
is-
of armor.
This is the prologue, Matt. That's what you don't know.
Oh god, it's so depressingly long.
That was Just Your Life by Megadeth.
Oh.
Oh god, I don't know if that swings us nicely into the hypothetical. What have you got this week, John?
No, my hypothetical was different. My hypothetical was based on what your personality, interests, all your bullshit and everything, and what people think of you. If you weren't born England, British, and with your particular accents you were, what like accent language would you think you'd speak? Like just from personality-wise.
Are you asking me to decide what country I should be based on my personality? Because that sounds like a
Kind of.
BuzzFeed question.
Yeah, I know, but fuck it, because I think you'd be aggressively Spanish.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Like, not an aggressive Spaniard, but just pronounced.
Are you perchance thinking of Matt's D&D character Costello?
Yeah, partly.
To influence-
Or Stultus.
Oh no, not Stultus.
I don't know. Stultus, I don't want to.
Stultus, who is basically Manuel from Faulty Towers, but as a lizard man.
Oh yeah.
Also somehow the most trained medic in that party.
Matt's done a lot of like Spanish reptilian men, isn't he? I mean, not like dumb, but, he's big. I mean,
Well, we don't know everything about his life.
Oh, I had a mouthful of tea there.
Better than a mouthful of iguana.
I've learned two things from this exchange. One, the reptilians are real, and two, Matt has had many of them.
I love me a lizard in a skin suit.
And clipped.
Look, if there's ever a best of, that's going in there.
Because I'm not sure if Corby would just be like, that's just a stereotype to just being Japanese.
Look, before I had a haircut, I was every hentai protagonist that existed, so...
Hentai has protagonists?
Hentai specifically.
You never seen those memes where it's literally like just a regular anime guy,
slightly shaggy
except...
hair and you can't see the eyes, and
yeah, his hair covers his eyes.
Oh, yeah.
It's that running gag that hentai protags just don't have eyes.
They can't see
They've
the
all
way
got
around,
blind
they
sight.
feel the way around, which has unintended consequences. Anyway,
That's how they get into all the sticky situations.
not just glue. Anyway,
My modelling has gone wrong.
I don't know what to say about you, Tom, because I imagine Australian just because the amount of love you have for Australian culture you have.
Yeah. I could imagine, like, having never met you, Tom, and I look at you now, I could immediately say you were Australian.
No, I could imagine, like, he's part of, like, not quite a surfer group, but he hangs out on the beach with that cap and stuff in Australia. Just doesn't want to go to the water because the sharks.
He's cool, is not actually cool.
Oh, sorry,
I'm
Tom,
actually
you had
not
to
part
find
of the
out that
surfer
way.
group. I just sell hot dogs to them. I have a little hot dog stand on the beach.
you got a bit. You're a little pally with them, but you don't.
All right, mate. Do you want to buy a hot dog?
Don't you?
For $1, I don't know.
What about a warm doggy?
One Australian
Or a
dollar.
warm doggy.
No, what about a warm dog? I said really shit.
That, he'd be Australian, or he'd be New Zealand. He'd be from New Zealand.
Born in New Zealand, raised in Australia.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean...
That sounds like a weird alternate Fresh Prince of Bel-Air song.
Do we all just agree that John is like hardcore 12th century Roman?
Roman?
Crusade.
I
I was going to say Russian.
I thought you were going to say Russian. Oh, not
I would
12th
say,
century Russian.
I'd say
That's the worst
Russian or...
12th century Russia.
I don't know why Canadian sprang to mind.
I get that.
Is it
sometimes.
the lumberjack
When I've
vibe?
gone to places like when I get to someone like when I go to a place like Batley or whatever, when I'm doing for a crappy job interview thingy, people there didn't understand my slightly posh accent. They thought I was Canadian. Several people I met there thought I was Canadian. It was weird.
I had that as well.
Someone with a pronounced Canadian accent, you do not sound Canadian in the slightest.
No, I've been accused of that. I've been accused of it in Oakley by a homeless man. That was weird.
You damn Canadian.
He said something about JFK Airport too. He was a very odd person. Anyway, he kind of chased me into a car.
Sounds like an exciting day.
I was gonna say that also happened to me. I went for a job interview and they were like, "Were you raised in America or something?" And I was like, "No." Just like, "Well, you have a strange accent." I'm like,
to be fair, you do say "y'all" a lot.
I also have been asked if I was Australian before a few times.
Yeah.
Well, it pans out then.
Yeah.
And I have had someone actually when I was working at Aldi for a bit. I did have someone just come up to me and just start talking to me in Russian. I didn't understand. I was like,
yes.
I was just
Secretly,
like,
yes.
Okay. And they went, "Oh, sorry. I'm just going to ask me where the cucumbers were."
I've also been. I've also been mistaken for
Just get
German.
propositioned.
I wish.
Oh, sorry, Tom. What were you saying?
I've also been mistaken for German in the past by some people who were German on a bus in Italy, which was a confusing situation.
You are quite Aryan.
Well, yeah, I have blonde hair and blue eyes and that. And I had a beard at the time.
And the uniform didn't help.
Yeah, and I was wearing a big German flag wrapped around like a shawl.
Oh, that themed holiday was a bad idea.
No, I was on holiday with my family, and a German couple came up to me and just started chatting in German, and I was like, I don't know what to say.
I can exactly imagine how you would respond.
I only know like one or two.
In there, like, oh, they are talking to me. Oh no.
I only know one or two things in German, and one is "Nein sprechen Sie Deutsch," which is very helpful because it's just like immediately tells them I'm an idiot. Don't.
Well, John, It's that time of the week where you present your thing first.
Yes.
Would you like to seize the day and go for gold
Or
win?
die regretting it? What?
That is Ad Falcium. Yeah, let's go.
Oh,
Okay.
he's Russian again.
That was Latin.
Yeah, close enough.
Deus Volt, motherfucker.
We basically just said I'm a Teuton. Okay, anyway, this is not anyway. Right.
About to be eaten by 14th century Poland.
Anyway, what I'm going to talk to you today is about one of the more interesting World War II stories that I've come across. And the thing is, I've only come across him one or two places. This is the kind of person who should be as famous as like people like Mad Jack Church, who people just know about. But for some reason, he's just not as such. He's a lot more famous in America and in Russia, as you'll find out. I'm going to talk about
I think I know who it is.
Joseph Byerly.
Nope,
No?
don't know who it is.
Joseph Byerly, who is pretty much the only American soldier to have been given both American and Russian medals in World War II.
Do I know who this is?
I don't know. We'll get into it.
Finnish, is he?
No.
Why would the Russians give someone from Finland their medals?
Oh, yeah, that was
They
such a
wanted
dumb
to invade
question.
them.
I've said
Were
that
you just trying to think of somewhere that was like right between Russia and America?
I think you're
Like,
thinking of
I guess Finland is in there.
What's his name? Lavi Tovi?
Yeah, I'm thinking of him.
Yeah, him. You're thinking of him. Right. No. Joseph Byerly. Basically, he born in 1923. Grew up a very quite fit young man. He enlisted. He was actually going to go to a university on a basketball sponsorship actually. So he was really quite athletic at the time. But instead he thought, no, I'm in my 20s. It's I'm gonna go join the 101st Airborne and be a paratrooper. Fair enough. Right.
Basketball? Paratrooper. Basketball.
Simon, you jumping planes, and just off he went.
Tell you what,
Anyway.
you'd get a really good bounce on the basketball if you dropped it from that height.
The funny thing is, he was nicknamed by his other fellows in the 101st Airborne. He joined the 101st Airborne Screaming Eagles department, which is it is such an American bloody thing. It's just like holy crap.
Good song.
But yeah, no, he was going to go to the University of Notre Dame in America. Yeah, but he did that. Yeah, the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Screaming Eagles Division, which basically are paratroopers who specialise in radio communication and also demolition. So they're fun guys.
I was gonna say
when they jump out planes.
No, don't actually. Bald eagles sound awful. They're always dubbed over by like hawk noises, actual hawk noises in films.
The sound of an eagle is just that bad.
Bald eagle noises are pathetic. It sounds like a shit seagull. Honestly, it's bad.
I also
Sorry, I know it's like anti-American propaganda, but that's true. Anyway,
I know, like, before
colonies back soon.
with the thing where you say he's in charge of like demolition or things, and then being basketball, it's just doing like the ultimate slam on wherever in the rating.
Come on and slam the jump bunker.
Or in the room.
No, he was actually called
breaking the sound barrier as he jumps with the basketball.
No, his fellows called him Jumpin' Jack because, well, he did a lot more jumps than the average. He did a lot more like, practice jumps than the average member of the 101st Airborne. Because a lot of his fellows didn't want to jump, do that many practice jumps because there was always the worry of breaking a leg and you wouldn't actually be able to do your duty and stuff like that. So instead, he did a couple of their jumps disguised as them. So they didn't have to do it. He probably did quite. We're not sure how many extra he did, but he did quite a few more than he should have done.
Some big brain plays.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do what's called a pro gamer move.
Yeah, he's already a bit of a bad lad. So.
Everyone else is worried about breaking their legs, so they won't be able to do their service, and then he just goes like, "Hold on a minute,
there's a thing here. No,
I don't have to serve if I break my leg.
Yeah,
sign me the fuck up."
Yeah, and basically, he. And then he got his first station was in Ramsbury, England, to prepare for the upcoming actual invasion into France.
Oh, the D-Day.
Yeah.
The D-Days.
The day of the D. No.
No.
Well,
That's a different holiday.
I watched the wrong movie. No.
What gave it away? The Brazzers logo in the corner.
Yeah, please, end hentai. No, it's not true. Anyway, after 9 months of training with this, I suppose probably way more jumps than probably was necessary, he actually completed 2 missions in occupied France, which were mainly consist of dropping him and some of his fellows in, loaded up with gold, actual gold bars for the resistance. For money, and it probably helped deliver probably like $250,000 worth to them. And because obviously you don't need to. If it's gold, it's universal. No one's going to bitch about like the currency. The
only thing that went through my brain then is, they got the gold to replace with the Nazi gold to steal the Nazi gold.
Quick, we need more gold, otherwise France will die.
I love gold.
But then he got basically. This is when things got dangerous for him because the night
was already in France.
No, that was pretty bad already. But he then was chosen among the rest of the 101st Airborne Division to drop in over France June the 5th, 1944, the night before D-Day.
Oh yeah, the whole like screw them before they're ready.
Yeah, literally get behind the enemy lines, cut bridges, power supplies, do everything you can to fuck up the defenses before the landing. So yes,
spread the basketballs all over the area.
Because
some like Space Jam challenge Hitler to a one-on-one.
Basically, early. Oh Christ, what was it? And so basically, early June 6th on because it was pretty much past midnight. His C-47 came on to enemy fire coming over the Normandy coast because the anti-aircraft guns were nasty over there.
Like the 88 flaks or something. The German stuff.
Something like that. It was they did have stuff like that.
Which they were so powerful they used them as anti-tank guns. I'm pretty sure.
At the start of the war, definitely, and actually in the middle of the war. But anyway, the problem with this is you have to drop off paratroops. You generally have to go for somewhat steady to actually get them safely out of the plane.
And
you couldn't do that with the amount of anti-aircraft fire. So these planes came in fast and they came in low. When Biley jumped out of the actual plane, they reckon he was only about 120 meters off the ground.
Oh.
So 350 plus feet. He made it. He landed on top of a church. The actual church is called the Comte du
Mont. Why do you
Mont.
look so confused? That's someone landing on the church.
There's a plaque there for him now.
What happened when you said that was the image of what happens to Skinner at the end of Hot Fuzz sprung to mind.
No, he was fine. He landed on the roof bit of it and just kind of slid down the side, got his gun and effed off into the darkness as quick as he could because there were Germans firing at him.
I also have a great image of because you said it's only like 100 something meters. He just stepped out of the plane onto the roof of the church.
I'm here. But people were taking pot shots at him as he was coming down. But anyway, there's a fantastic plaque there now which just says from the spot on June 6th, 1944, T/4 Joseph Byerly, ICO 506 PRR 101st Airborne Division began his war for the liberation of the people of Europe. Which if they put his plaque there, begun his war, it's going to be a fun tale. So he was completely separated from most of his unit because they were that fast that jump. There was quite a big distance between them. So he got to work basically. So completely alone. He managed to ambush one or two Nazis. He found the Comte du Mont power substation and blew that up. Good on him. Blew up a thermite nonetheless, and ambushed a squad, chucked grenades at a full squad of German infantry, and then basically disappeared into the darkness to go try and blow up the bridge that his unit was supposed to actually send to blow up, to basically prevent them sending reinforcements to Utah Beach where they were going to be landing.
Yeah.
They called a lot of parts of Normandy stuff Utah Beach. Just Americans call them because they land there.
Utah, Omaha, Gold.
Yeah, Omaha's the famous one. Yeah, and unfortunately, there was a thing they called the bocage back then, where they the massive hedgerows between German fields, French fields, and which was great, good for cover, but it meant you just couldn't see what was on the other side of it. He crawled through one of those, straight into the middle of a German machine gun nest, and was
Guten Tag.
properly captured. Properly captured. And yeah, he basically surrendered. He got moved around to several different German POW camps over the next 7 months. But yeah, the first one he got stuck at, I believe, was Stalag 11A. He got registered as a POW. And the problem with that is he got interrogated quite badly when he got there. Because
Painful, or they did a poor job of it?
Oh, no, painfully. Because the thing is, Byerly, his last name is spelled Beyrle, spelled a really interesting way, because his grandparents are German. They came over from Germany. So the Nazis basically... There's a bit from his excerpt of his book here. There we go. Because he says... I was interrogated 20 to 24 hours a day. They were trying to get me all the usual questions answered. Why me, a German, was I fighting for the Jews, Roosevelt, and Morgenthau against my own people? Sometime during the question, I called a German officer an SOB and woke up several days later in a hospital with a big headache and a bashed head, and I later was taken back to the monastery. And it was pretty bad, because on the way to that POW camp, he did get blown up by, we think, Allied artillery. Got a bit of shrapnel in him. He did escape briefly for 12 hours, because even the artillery thought, I've got the shrapnel, fuck it, I'm making a run for it. They caught him 12 hours again later and marched him back to the camp. After he first joined that camp for a bit, he then got sent off to work on as a forced labour unit on the railways, but quite close to Normandy. And then once again, got dive bombed quite a bit by Allied. No, not dive bombed, but bombed quite a bit by Allied planes. This is a recurring theme. He does get shot at a lot by Allied planes. He does seem a bit like a magnet for it.
Just love me the noise of a dive bombing plane.
Yeah, and
my alarm clock is the Stuka dive bomber sound.
Oh god. But yes. Anyway, they basically eventually put him in a truck and drove him towards Saint Lo, which was again strafed by Allied aircraft.
Wasn't Saint Lo this kind of a really vicious fighting?
It wasn't great. I mean, there was. It's hard to find a bit of France that wasn't.
I felt like
vicious fight.
France in World War II.
Yeah, and he got sent to Saint Lo, I think, before he got sent to the forced labour camp. But the problem was when he got to Saint Lo, when he got there, the Americans bombed Saint Lo all night long. Anyway, this guy's a magnet for bombing runs, basically. And
they didn't tell him that he's got a little transponder on it, just following him.
The thing is, at this point. Before this point, they actually thought the Americans thought he was dead, because what had happened was when they captured him, a German had taken his dog tags and an American uniform and tried to pass himself off as an American to cause chaos on the front lines. Completely failed. It wasn't Otto Skorzeny's unit or anything like that, but it was in that vein of things. Completely failed, and he got captured fairly quickly, but he got captured with his dog tags, so they assumed killed in action. Because otherwise, why would a German have his dog tags? Later on in the war, I think at the second camp, it might be the first camp when he actually properly got there, but it was a long amount of time before he got there. The first camp he got to, they did register him as a POW, and he did manage to write a letter home to his parents saying, "Hey, I'm not dead." Unfortunately, had a funeral already, but they were relieved to find out he was actually alive. Right.
It's a weird letter to come home to after the funeral.
Yeah. It was,
as they've just covered the gravesite off, and then they just delivered a letter.
But for the next but as I said, for the next 3 months, forced labour camps, multiple different camps, starved, beaten, interrogated, blah blah blah. Not a good time.
I feel like he's being steadily moved eastwards.
Yeah, he is. He worked during the day, survived Allied bombs at night, weather, hunger, disease, exhaustion, constantly bad. At one point, he was locked in a boxcar for a week with 50 other guys in it, which once again was strafed by Allied aircraft, and he somehow survived again. It's for fuck's sake, there must be a tracker on him or something. I never look at this. Must be ironic because you're a former paratrooper, right? You're being strafed by
the Air Force.
By September of '44, he was in Poland, but but yeah, and what happened? He was in a Russian POW camp with about 12,000 Russian men Russian men and women POWs.
German POW camp filled with Russians.
It was German. It was organized by the Germans in Poland, full of Russians.
Yes.
World War. Anyway, but he is. I'm going to put a picture of him when they first actually when he actually captures a POW. Like, just seeing this picture makes you think this is a man I should watch and be careful of, because he's probably going to kill me. He does. I'll just find the images, because this is the one actually. There we are. The one actually of him taken in the bloody the first camp he was at. There we are. And you can just see how much of a determined bastard he looks.
Oh my god!
Oh wow, yeah.
Look at that.
It looks like you just knocked a pint over in the pub.
Yeah. That was when he was. That's when he's captured. So right now he's a hard man to deal with. Anyway, basically on the cold night in November of November of 1944, Biley and 3 other Americans cut through a barbed wire in the camp and began their escape south. They got to this. Basically, they were trying to meet up. They thought, what we're going to do: get to a railway station, get on a train east, meet up with the Red Army, right? Because they're only a short distance away. Not an awful plan. They got there. They got on the train. Fantastic. The real problem here was, it wasn't a train heading to Poland, heading through Poland. It was a train heading directly to Berlin.
Oh. Oh no.
Quite literally the wrong way.
Yeah.
Not just the wrong way, to the capital of the country you're at war with.
They managed to get to the railway station by basically bribing the guards of the camp. This was Stalag 3C. This particular camp. I believe. Anyway, they bribed some of the German guards with cigarettes they got from the Red Cross, and then hopped over a railway station and got, unfortunately, a train to Berlin. And
they get to Berlin, they open the curtain, they just see Hitler, and it's like, oh no.
They have to remember, these guys are still in full prisoner of war uniforms or outfits. It's literally like those movies where the criminals have to break their kind of shackles kind of thing. It's not good. Anyway, they were trying basically when they got there to meet up with the. They actually managed to link up with some of the resistance in Berlin, because what a lot of history books and stuff don't go over there is there was actually quite a big German resistance movement, German underground resistance, basically trying to help the Allies during the war. Stuff like the White Rose, who were a Nazi resistance group made out of students from the University of Munich and stuff like that. Anyway, they linked up the resistance, spent nearly a week hiding from the authorities, and attempted to contact Allied command. Unfortunately, a particular German citizen turned them over to the Gestapo. Right.
Oh boy.
And this is not the ha-ha funnier lower Gestapo.
No. There are no sexy Helgas to be seen here. Anyway, in the next, this is another quote from his.
You prefer her flick in the undergarments, Tom?
Who
doesn't?
Yeah, this is another.
I love that walk cycle. What can I say?
It's good. It is good. Anyway, this is a quote from his biography again, which is another interesting thing. It says here, just to show how nasty it could be, in the next 7 to 10 days, we found out everything we had heard about the Gestapo was true. We were interrogated, tortured, kicked, knocked around, walked on, hung up by arms backwards, hit with whips, clubs, and rifle butts. We thought they could do no more, they would think of other ways to torture you. When they would slip into semi-consciousness, they would start again. Bastards. After about a week of this, the Gestapo thought, well, they're American spies, let's have them shot. And they will line up to have them shot, basically, when the German military stepped in and said, no, they're prisoners of war. We can't shoot them. We have to go back. They have to go back to the POW camps. And they got literally kind of saved by the bell kind of thing.
Damn.
And it was, because they basically said, no, these are American spies who parachute into Berlin. How else could they got
on the train. They literally caught the train to Berlin.
It was anyway. They then got basically they put him back in the prison camp at Stageluft 3, where he was sentenced to spend 30 days in a 4x5 foot pine box, which obviously is basically small. You can't even lie down in, probably.
Basically,
As punishment for escaping. Yeah. Luckily, he only was in there 7 days. What to say? Luckily, only 7, because a Red Cross operative from Geneva basically said you can't do that. and
no, pine boxes
intervened on
are
his
not
behalf.
on the list of allowed treatments.
Yeah.
I use the word treatments.
So-
That's the wrong word to use.
Yeah. Now the thing is about the Stalag Luft camp was, it got opened in 1942, right, and it was considered unescapable pretty much at the start,
Like Corby.
escape proof. Yeah, a bit. It housed mainly British and American airmen, so he's obviously among friends at least. That's something. His planes had crashed back to his territory. And it was they basically. It took months for Biley to actually get his strength back after, let's say, being systematically tortured for a week, starved, beaten, blah, 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 then put in a pine box for 7 days. But he did eventually get his strength back. And, all right, we're escaping, lads. Again.
I'm getting the right train.
This time
We'll pay attention to the signposts at the train station.
If only I knew German numbers.
Really study that timetable.
We'll get there 20 minutes early to make sure we've enough time.
The basically, because they'd heard on a contraband radio in there that the Russians were advancing. The Red Army was a short distance away, a couple of days away, maybe.
coming.
What, late 44?
Yeah, very late 44. Yeah. So they're pushing hard, I believe. I think it's late 44. Yeah. Actually, no. It'll be It'll be no. It's not late 4. I know exactly what it is. It's January 45.
Yes, it's just gone over.
The Russians are pushing hard.
They've moved from a light jog to a moderate sprint.
It's a lot easier to move now that the snow's gone.
It's January in Russia. That's probably still snow.
Anyway.
If they're advancing through Poland, it's less snowy, I would have thought.
Yeah.
The snow has dropped from 10 to 12. I was 10 to 12 feet. 10 to 5 feet.
Basically, I think this attempt they basically tried to sneak out in empty food containers, which isn't a bad shout actually, and they got quite a far away, and then something, we're not sure exactly what happened. Something like one of the some of the food containers turned over or something like that, and they just had to basically make a mad dash for it. He escaped with 4 other airmen, American airmen. All 3 except for Biley were machine gunned down and dead.
Oh God!
Shit.
Right. Biley was on his own again. He was running, and he got into the forest basically, and then heard the barking of German shepherds on the air, tracking him down. He had to he had to hop into he dove into a frozen river and followed it for a couple miles east, basically, just trying to lose the track of the dogs, to trail dogs.
January as well.
Yeah, fucking January, Poland. Yeah, great.
That'd be a bit
proper
nippy.
shoes as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, and he's in POW outfit, isn't he? He probably does have shoes, but probably just the not exactly the nicest shoes. I mean, I wouldn't like.
Cardboard sandals.
Yeah.
Did you say cardboard?
Seriously, in World War One, the Austro-Hungarian army was so poorly equipped they had cardboard boots.
Yeah,
Or
the
cardboard soles on
one
their
thing,
shoes.
if I was going to be a soldier,
No
the one
wonder
thing I want other
Austro-Hungary
than a
fell
working
apart.
gun was a decent pair of boots. That's all I think. That's what you need. Anyway,
If they had cardboard shoes, no wonder Austro-Hungary fell apart.
It rained a little bit, and that
Like
just
cardboard in the rain.
Yeah. Anyway, after dealing with all this, he escaped early January. After dealing with all this, he made it to Soviet lines. He encountered, in the middle of January, he encountered a tank brigade, and he kind of came towards them. He held up a pack of Lucky Strike cigarettes, because obviously American, and just shouted at them, "Amerikansky tovarishch," which means American comrade in Russian. He didn't know much Russian at all, but he knew that.
that's important.
Yeah, American comrade. I got 6, and and they basically are great American airmen. Sure, we're pretty sure he's not a German spy. We'll send back to the U.S. Embassy behind lines. At which point he said, "No, give me a gun." and the first officer he met said, "No," but then he went and petitioned the battalion commander. Now this is interesting because the battalion commander of the tank battalion was Alexandra Samosenko, the only female tank officer in the war.
Oh,
you know
wow.
that. Yeah, just got through Kursk,
That's
and
cool.
that he's met her.
Yeah, wasn't she like the one that she demanded Stalin give her a tank?
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, it's and she did fantastically in the winter. She did good in the Winter War. She did fantastically at the battle. Outstanding at the Battle of Kursk. She got her order. She got the Order of the Red Star for when her her tanker and T-34 defeated 3 Tiger tanks.
Wow.
Yeah, she was fantastic, and basically, we know a bit about her from Joseph Biley because obviously on the Met, and he said that she lost basically her husband and entire family during the. He thought she was fantastic, but he basically persuaded her to let him go and join the offensive, and she basically went. She very casually just kind of like, yeah, sure. Here's a PPSH-41 and ammo. Come on, hop on the tank.
On your bike, son.
Yeah. Yeah, and he then basically began a month-long stint in a Soviet tank battalion, fighting on that side of the war. And because they actually quite appreciated the fact he knew what he was doing with demolitions. He was a great demolitions expert. And in that middle of that month-long stint, he liberated the camp he'd escaped from.
Oh, nice.
He'd gone back and
The ultimate revenge story.
Yeah. And you have to remember, he's only been gone for
It would have been about a month and a half.
Yeah. Well, no, that was probably in the middle of it, I think. But yeah,
Well, that would have been, he's gone for 2 weeks and then he's back.
No, literally gone. Because at the end of January, the camp had been liberated. He'd only escaped at the beginning of January, so 2-3 weeks. Unfortunately, in the first week of February, wounded during an attack by German dive bombers. Planes hate this man.
Planes hate this man's one trick.
Do you reckon that while he was a paratrooper, so he knew that they couldn't shoot him if he was already in the plane?
That's what he thinks.
Does his biography cover traumatizing plane-based events in his early childhood?
Yeah. Anyway. He escaped from that. He did all that. He after he got wounded, he was evacuated to a Soviet hospital in Landsberg and der Warthe. Now it's called Gorzów Wielkopolski in Poland, where he was recovering there when a particular high-rank official heard that there was a non-Soviet soldier fighting for the Red Army injured in this hospital. So he got a visit from none other than Field Marshal Georgy Zhukov.
Oh my god!
I know. It's World War.
A list of the best of the best.
Yeah, it's World War II fan fiction. I know.
Yeah, I guess right now,
really
to me, right now, what this is Assassin's Creed.
But actually.
Oh god, I'm imagining I cannot remember the actor's name, but The Death of Stalin. Where he comes in and he just has all the medals and he pulls the shirt down and all the medals just go oomph.
Yeah, but basically he was intrigued because it's the non-Soviet in a field hospital, so he had a good long chat with him via an interpreter. He didn't speak great English, Biley didn't speak almost no Russian. I learned his story through interpreter, and basically he left. An officer next day, a Russian officer, basically came up to Biley and gave him some papers and just said, "Don't ask what's in these, but they'll get you where you need to go."
That's sus as fuck.
Yeah, that's Russians. Everything's sus. Anyway, and basically he then got shipped back to Moscow to the U.S. Embassy. Although things got kind of nuts with the Americans when they learned that there was a supposed US airman in a Red Army uniform, and they were like, "We're still not certain if he's dead or not, right? No. All right. Pretty sure he's a German spy. Just keep an eye on him for 2 weeks." And it's and he was basically held under. He got back in February 1945, and because the U.S. War Department were kind of still believed he got killed in action back in June 10th, 1944. He obviously managed to send a letter to his family, but I think the U.S. War Office still wasn't convinced, and let's face it, they were dealing with a lot of crap at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he'd already had the funeral and him back in Muskegon, Michigan, where he was from, and obituaries in the local newspaper, all that kind of almost a year ago, But yeah, he basically placed under Marine Guard at the Metropole Hotel until his identity was established through fingerprints, and the ambassador still was a little concerned that he might not be who he says he was. And so he was shipped around to multiple places throughout the war, actually, before they finally shipped him home. He went to shipped to Odessa, Egypt, Italy at one point.
He had a lovely Mediterranean.
He had a fucking
Mediterranean.
Anyway, before finally being cleared and returning home on April 11th. So to clarify, he got to Moscow in February.
Moscow in February, 2-month Mediterranean holiday.
He made it back home in time to celebrate VE Day. With his parents, with his family,
that's nice.
which is lovely. He got back on April 20. He got back on April 21st. At this point he'd already been given. He'd been given so many medals. He'd earned a Purple Heart. Let's see. He's got a Purple Heart, a World War II victory medal for taking part in World War II, a French Croix de Guerre just for basically taking part, a Soviet Order of the Red Banner, which is pretty much, I think it's essentially until the Order of Lenin was established in 1930, it was the highest award you could get.
That's impressive.
And even then, afterwards, it was still kind of ranked as the same, because the Order of Lenin could be earned by civilians for certain great things, but the Order of the Red Banner could only be earned by military personnel. So you had to have been in operations to have earned it.
So it's the equivalent of the civilian one.
Yeah, and it is a bitchin' medal.
That is nice.
Yeah,
that is
and he
quite
also
the medal.
got a medal for the liberation of Warsaw from them. So he got multiple medals from the Soviets there. Anyway, what also proves interesting is basically after he got back, after the war had ended, he got married in the same church his wake was done in his funeral, and by the same priest who officiated it. Just to rub it in a little bit.
I'm not gonna lie. I really hoped you were gonna say he got married on the church he landed on.
That's why I was.
I also thought you were going to say.
I wish just that thing. No, but
Did he make it even better by getting out the grave the priest had buried him in?
I can just imagine him side-eyeing the priest when it comes to "till death do you part." Just hey.
Oh God, it's just up. Anyway, right. And he spent a lot of his life basically talking about the war and going around various places and discussing it. In 1994, on the 50th anniversary of D-Day, he got recognized by both President Clinton and President Yeltsin of the Soviet Union at once. They both said, "Hey, look at this guy! Isn't he cool?" He's a very old man at this point. He did. I think he eventually died, I believe, in 2004 at the age of 81. In fact, he was. He was, and especially because he was still going around doing chats at this point at various schools. That's what he was there in this particular town doing. Another interesting thing again, which makes it sound even more like World War II fan fiction, is the person who wrote his biographies, Thomas Taylor, who did the Simple Sounds of Freedom and Behind Hitler's Lines, which are essentially the same book, but just repackaged and republished. Almost all about massive amounts about Joseph Biley. And obviously the first one is just his biography. That Thomas Taylor was the son of General Maxwell Taylor, the commander of the 101st Airborne, while Biley was in it. So it's all the whole story is wrapped up in this weird, massive package, and
like a nicely wrapped up bundle.
Yeah, it is. It is just such an amazing story that it just doesn't get heard enough.
I've never heard of that guy.
No, I hadn't heard about him until 2 or 3 weeks ago when I watched a video by this guy called Potential History on YouTube.
Oh yeah, Potential History.
Yeah, and he did that. He is just he was just such an insane man. Just he's gone all the way across Europe and pretty much tried to go his way back again. Just
honestly surprised he didn't take the long way route back to America through Russia and had to go through Japan.
Oh God,
I'm going the pursuit. Give me a tank. I'm heading east. No. But yeah, I don't know why he got shot at by planes so often, but it was there's at least 5 named times where he's been bombed or shot at.
I'm legit debating whether just to make that the title of this episode, give it like the clickbaity, like planes hate this man. And
planes hate this man. Learn this man's secret. Planes hate him. Oh God, yeah. But yeah, unfortunately about the what's her name, Alessandra Samosenko, she didn't survive the war. She died in March.
Yeah, she died like a month later.
Yeah. Obviously, after he'd.
When did the war end?
Wasn't it in April or August? I know that's quite far apart.
Well, it was end of April for Europe.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, of course,
VE
we had VE Day celebrations in April this year.
Yeah, Fiction Europe Day, and Fiction Europe Day is 8th of May. There we are. I should know that.
Yeah.
The Japanese hung on quite a little bit until obviously the nukes. Because the war officially ended 2nd September.
I hate that.
But
why is that the running joke that sticks?
Yeah.
Why is Big O for Hiroshima the running joke that sticks?
Oh, God.
Why did we do this?
Yeah. Oh, I've got to say, one thing about Joseph Biley, his family kind of continued his name a bit. His elder son, Joseph Biley II, because of course he's going to call him. He's going to be Junior, right? You've done enough. You get my name. He served in the 101st Airborne during the Vietnam War, and his son Joseph John Biley served as the United States ambassador to Russia between 2008 and 2012. Which, I mean, must have been quite a feather in USA's cap, I imagine.
Yeah.
So after he died, a plaque was put on the church, which I read out in the script to you earlier.
Yeah.
He's got there was an exhibition shown about him in Moscow in 3 other Russian cities in 2010.
That's really cool that Russia as well is celebrating him.
Well, yeah, and there's a couple of documents you got the German record of Biley's details as a prisoner of war with that fucking photo in the bottom left again.
That's the one you put?
A couple of photos like that. There's that. The War Department telegram got a picture of the telegram basically saying, "Hey, he's dead." And we've got a picture. And we've also got a picture of the Soviet medical chart detailing his wounds, which has got a little drops of blood on. So I imagine he was quite heavily wounded. Yeah.
Oof.
Stop saying oof. Anyway.
Sorry.
But yeah,
it's just the internet's conditioned me to not come up with a better opinion expression word.
Yeah, he got like a. But there was obviously it's one of those medals. There's a lot of awards, just like just from badges for what he's achieved, like parachutist badge, combat infantry badge, Bronze Star, Prisoner of War medal, which I forgot. Obviously, because he's a POW several times, kept getting out.
He only got the one medal for it, though.
Only got the one.
I became a POW, and all I got was this medal.
Well, it's the achievement. You can only get the achievement once, can't you? Just.
I don't like the way this photo is looking at me in the Discord.
What, Joseph Biley?
It's a very intense glare.
Yeah.
If only because it's on my second monitor and it's angled, so it just looks like it's looking at me.
I mean, they made him tough back in that day because he even as a young kid, he grew up in the Depression, right? His earliest memories just waiting in food lines and the like because it was bad. So that's why it's impressive that he turned down that scholarship to a really good university to go fight for his country.
Slam dunk the Germans a new one from both sides of the pitch.
He's just getting like the Russian, the fucking tank that dribbles the bomb to him and just slam dunks it through the cap. Oh God, Tom, I'm sorry, Tom. I'm giving you really hard ideas for the really hard job to do with a thumbnail now. Anyway, that is the tale of Joseph Biley.
Well, don't worry. I have a thumbnail suggestion after I've been through mine.
Oh dear.
Which I'll get right into because it's fairly long.
Will planes hate this man?
Learn his secret.
So I'm going to take you guys back, far back, way before World War II. How much do you guys know about the Roman Empire?
Big.
It fell apart.
It's big. It fell apart.
A lot of roads.
A lot
A lot of
togas.
roads. A lot of roads. A lot of roads.
I did see on Reddit recently. I saw like someone had done basically like a map of all the roads that Rome built. Not
Yeah, it's
well, that
mental.
the Roman Empire
That'd be
built.
cool to see. I haven't seen that. Yeah.
It's basically a tube map.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. It looked like
Yeah.
a tube map over like
That's fair enough.
what the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, most people, as I'm sure, including you guys, most people who've learned Roman history, you know all about Julius Caesar, Pompey, Mark Antony. You know the big names that everyone
Hail
thinks.
Kaiser.
War of the Four Emperors, all that shit. Yep.
You know, the fall of the Republic era, all that jazz. Well, I'm not going to talk about that era. I'm going to take you on a journey about the lesser-known people who are still quite awesome. But I'm going to give you specifically one man who is an absolute badass. But I'm going to give you some context first. As you know, Rome started out as a republic before it transformed into the empire under Augustus at about 27 BC. And then you had the Julio-Claudian dynasty, then a weird period in time called the Year of the Four Emperors. Then you had the Flavian dynasty, and then the era of the Five Good Emperors, which is where you get people like Hadrian. And
I've
Marcus
always
Aurelius.
pronounced it Flavian.
better, we promise.
Yeah, the Flavian dynasty led by Vespasian.
I thought it was like Flavius.
I think it's
And Flavius just sounds like something you just call a food.
this very
When you
tasty
book your way into a food review.
This food is very Flavius.
Flavius Maximus. Yeah, you had.
That's how I now review foods. It's the highest rating a food can get. It's got Flavius Maximus.
Yeah, I was given that award by the Soviet Union.
Oh,
I know.
you had the era of the Five Good Emperors, which had Marcus Aurelius, Hadrian, which are kind of names people do know. Then you also had Trajan, who was the man who, at the end of his reign, that empire was at its biggest. So it included parts of Hungary and down into Persia and that kind of area.
The Maghreb and everything. All
And
that.
there's a fun little segment where the Praetorian Guard literally sold off the job of emperor.
Yeah.
They had a bidding war in the Praetorian camp, which then took them to the Year of the Five Emperors, and then to the troubled Severan dynasty, which ended with the death of Alexander Severus and ushered into the crisis, the empire into the crisis of the 3rd century, which is not ominous at all.
No, I'm sure at some point there was just like a 14-year-old, essentially a prostitute.
You might be thinking about Elagabalus, who,
Yeah.
who
That's
boy,
unfortunate.
did he love the sun god. So, just what was the crisis of the 3rd century? Any guesses?
Sounds like a DC crossover event.
I was going to say, fucking bad by the sound that it was called The Crisis.
John?
I don't know. I don't know the year of the crisis. I don't know.
The crisis of the 3rd century was a 50-ish year period between 235 and 284 AD, which was, you could argue it was bad. I'm gonna list a few problems. Rome was beset by civil wars, barbarian invasions and migrations, peasant rebellions, plague, debasement of currency, general corruption, an over-reliance on mercenaries, expensive armies, climate change, rising sea levels, a lack of clear succession laws, a breakdown of internal trade routes, localization, and general depression.
Just like a Civ game.
Oh yeah, general corruption and general depression. Those guys
There's
really
almost
did a
as-
number.
There's almost as many plot lines here as there was the punchline.
So it's a little bad. It's a little bad. You know, if it had gone on, it may have killed the Roman Empire 200 years too early. So, you know, small problems.
But that's just like putting it down when it's showing the first. It's like the dog's not going to recover. It needs to go to sleep. It's like no, it'll live. Oh no.
Just to put this in context of how bad this was, over the 50-year period, there were 26 emperors. So that's 2 emperors, like an emperor every 2 years, essentially.
Yeah.
They were like dropping like flies, just through either disease, getting killed by civil wars. This was a period where essentially every time a general won a fight, his troops would hail him as Augustus or emperor, and then the civil war would start again, and then you'd have internal wars all over the place.
Out of curiosity, do you know which plague was
It
knocking
would
about?
be the Cyprian plague.
I'm gonna just look that up just to see like
Fucking
what
Cyprus.
kind of.
But yeah, so it's Cyprian plague actually. So type in Cyprus and add Ian on the end.
Well, I think Cyprian because Cypriot, isn't it?
It's Cyprian or Cyprian, I can't remember. But it began with Maximinus Thrax, who was called the Barbarian Emperor because he was from Thrace and not particularly Roman, and ended with the ascension of Diocletian, who basically completely reformed Rome. He did
a right job of it, I think.
But I'm not going to talk about Diocletian.
No.
And it wasn't really Diocletian that saved the empire. That honor belongs to a cadre of Illyrian emperors, and specifically the greatest of them all, the Emperor Aurelian. Who was?
Name sounds familiar.
Lucius Domitius Aurelianus was born on the 9th of September in either 214 or 215. So we know the date, but not the year, which is weird.
I guess he forgot how old he was.
We know roughly how old he was, but for some reason we know the date, but not the year he was born. He was born in Pannonia, which is somewhere in the Balkans.
Yeah.
And like a lot of surprisingly common of emperors of this time, he was born from peasant stock. His father was a farmer, and his mother might have been a priestess, but we're not sure, just because that might be propaganda to link him with his religious views later down the line. Aurelian came of age right as the crisis of the 3rd century kicked off. Like, he would have been 20, pretty much bang on the time everything started going wrong. And so he basically went straight into the legions. Most provincials went straight into legions because it was the only way you could really improve your lot in life, because given everything I've just listed, it wasn't a great time to be alive.
Yeah, I'm just reading up on this plague. It says between 250 and 262, at the height of the outbreak, 5,000 people a day died in Rome.
Oh, yeah, it was bad.
That's big for that time. Jesus fucking Christ. Big for now.
I think it rivaled the Antonine Plague, which hit Rome at the end of the 2nd century. Or like 1st century, one of them. I can't remember.
Yep.
That says that here it's got 165 to 180.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think so.
So life in the legions was the best way to improve their lot in life, and Aurelian excelled at it. His career is essentially defined by war, and it is a credit to his skill and intelligence that he survived the fast-paced and deadly era. Like, he'd practically lived through the entire crisis, which should say something about how good he was. He was known as hand on hilt or sword in hand, just because he was just so good at his job.
Hand on hilt, sword in hand.
Don't make him camp.
Oh yeah. He's not camp, he's fabulous. Fuck you.
Despite being...
Oh god, hand on hilt, sword in hand just gives me a horrific image.
Was it the sex
Despite being amazing,
probably
an amazing soldier, Aurelian didn't actually come to prominence until the year 268, so towards the end of the crisis.
Yeah.
He had a reputation at this point for being tough, humorless, disciplined, focused, and he would suffer no fools. He was essentially your stereotypical hardline soldier.
He's the man that does not see the funny side to the name Biggest Dickus, yes.
Johnny, all right?
God, that really lagged me when he said Biggest Dickus. I heard everything.
Good. So it's theorized that Aurelian most likely joined the army in 235. And he probably joined as part of the auxiliary, Equite cavalry corps, because he was a cavalry officer when he actually starts appearing properly in history. Yeah. And cavalry was rapidly becoming the de facto center of the army. It had been infantry battles since 500 BC, and they'd used cavalry only now was cavalry becoming that core part of the army, and then this obviously transferred over into the medieval period where.
Because I think at that point they'd encountered cataphracts from other.
I'll be talking about cataphracts.
Oh, are we? Oh, cool.
And he became a cavalry commander under the Emperor Gallienus, and basically ran or was part of the mobile cavalry force that was running around trying to stamp out fires. The 3rd century is essentially a game of whack-a-mole, a very deadly game of whack-a-mole.
Gotta put down all those rebellions and barbarians.
I know you
so-
mean metaphorical
like
fires,
any-
but I was imagining like literal ones just happening. Like, oh fuck, we gotta go stamp that out.
That's like any mid-game EU4 game, Jesus.
You'll see why I call it whack-a-mole when we get into his time as emperor.
Yeah.
A lot of moles.
Prior warning, I'm going to be doing this by dates, essentially, the years. And just for anyone listening out there, I might get it the wrong way around in some scenarios, because the chronology for the 3rd century is muddled as fuck. So in 268, Emperor Gallienus was assassinated while besieging a city in northern Italy that was held by a usurper called Aureolus, I think. No one is entirely sure why he was assassinated, but everyone's pretty convinced he was murdered by his successor, Claudius Gothicus. Mainly because that was the done thing, Oh, I'm bored, let's stab our leader and I'll take over.
It's probably going to be tempting after a while.
Top 10 rainy day activities.
Like, you don't get a raise for like the 3rd month in a row, and I fucking get you.
This brought Aurelian practically to the top of the military and imperial hierarchy. He became the number 2 man, essentially, put in charge of the mobile cavalry, and basically Claudius would turn to him and be like, there's stuff over there that needs stopping, go harass them while I bring the infantry along.
Yeah, so he was the number 2 man, because the former number 2 man had killed the number 1 man.
Yes, so basically, it was like they've moved up the slots.
Yeah,
So in late 268, the Goths were ravaging the Middle Empire, the middle of the empire. So Aurelian was sent ahead to harass them. And this brings me on to what I have titled the rest of this story. Aurelian fixes the Roman Empire by kicking the shit out of everything.
Yeah, fair enough. It is a plan. You cannot say it's not a plan.
It's not a plan.
Yeah.
So Aurelius went over to said Goths and promptly kicked the shit out of them, driving them forward into Claudius's army in the Battle of Nisus, where he was instrumental in using the cavalry to basically smash them to pieces.
Yeah.
The remaining Goths then managed to get themselves trapped up the side of a mountain. Don't know how.
I mean, I guess you haven't got that much cavalry, they can probably encircle you a bit, so that's not great.
Which mountain?
It would have been. I can't remember. I think it was southern Illyria, somewhere around there.
Right. Okay.
Google Battle of Nisus, Nissus. It'll tell you. However, these Goths somehow managed to escape because Claudius decided he wasn't going to use the cavalry. And the battle was only salvaged when Aurelian decided to ignore him and use the cavalry to defeat the Goths. And the Goths, obviously not your modern day Goths,
No.
Even though I have been picturing that the whole time.
Just as spiky.
Just Richmond from the IT crowd.
God, an army of Richmond. They were essentially the big bads of the 3rd century. They had caused the Empire a lot of problems, including killing 2 emperors about, I think, maybe a decade or 2 decades prior in the disastrous Battle of Abritus. But yeah, Aurelian basically saved the day by kicking the shit out of the Goths again.
I can only assume Claudius wanted everyone to say, hey, Claudius did this rather than Claudius and Aurelian did this.
The emperors needed to win the battles themselves in order to stop the rest of the army going, hey, this guy is winning, let's back him.
I can't blame him, to be honest, because you do.
You'll see why Aurelian bucks the trend of this. So in early 269, Aurelian was instrumental in defeating a marauding Alemanni army up in, I think, somewhere in Italy, under the Battle of Lake Benacus. And then for the remainder of late 269, early 270, Aurelian basically travelled around the Balkans, kicking the shit out of the Vandals. However, in I think it was mid 270, Claudius Gothicus got killed by said Cyprian plague. While Aurelian was busy kicking the shit out of some Goths. And in August 270, his troops hailed him as Augustus. And this following 5 years has basically earned Aurelian the nickname of as the Man of Iron.
That's a good name.
As was classic in
Someone? No one?
It's no jumping jack, but...
nice.
Iron Man by Black Sabbath.
Oh,
No?
he gets a badass name out of this. As was
Better than Tin Can Man.
better than Tin Can Man. As was classic in the 3rd century, Aurelian's succession was rivaled by the Senate. The Senate and the army did not get on very well, even though the Senate was kind of irrelevant and useless at this point in time. The Senate didn't like Aurelian because Aurelian had a very, 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 very well-deserved reputation of being a dangerous, fearsome, and humorless man. They backed a man called Quintillus, who happened to be the brother of Claudius Gothicus, and they, I guess, just assumed because he was his brother that everything would be fine. Everything was not fine, and unfortunately for Quintillus, Aurelian had the army on his side, and proceeded to kick the shit out of him in northern Italy.
Sure loves kicking.
Oh, but he's got plenty more kicking to do.
I got my boots.
Now that Aurelian had basically secured his hold on power, he sought to fulfill the long-held dream of his predecessors, which was to reunite the Roman Empire. Now, I hadn't mentioned this previous, but this is very important. In about 260, the Roman Empire essentially fractured. Why did I try to
Fractured?
Fractured.
Jesus. Fractured.
It fractured and raptured at the same time.
It essentially fractured into 3 different empires. You had what was called the Gallic Empire, which was Britain, Gaul or France, and Spain.
That's a big chunk.
And then you had the Eastern Empire, which came under control of the city of Palmyra, which was a very, very important trade city between Persia, like Iraq, Iran area, and the eastern side of Roman Empire.
Is that the one that later became Byzantium?
No, that was Constantinople.
Right.
The reason we don't hear about Palmyra that much is because, well, you'll find out. Palmyra basically owned Syria, Palestine, that kind of area, which left the Middle Empire, which in Aurelian's hands.
Did he still have Anatolia?
He had some of Anatolia.
Right.
There is actually an awesome person who ran the Palmyran Empire called Overnophis, which I really want to talk about because he was so cool.
Right.
But we'll have to brush him aside for now.
Brush.
Neither of these places were wanting to give up their independence. They quite liked their independence. Everything was going well, everything was fine. There were less fires to put out. So Aurelian decided, first things first, let's go and get the East back, because the East is vital because, food and money and basically keeping Rome alive. Firstly, however, Aurelian had to kick the shit out of the Vandals, the Gefungi, and Sarmatians, who had taken his opportunity to walk away from the border to basically ravage the Balkans again. He did indeed kick the shit out of them and hailed himself Germanicus Maximus, which I think just means conqueror of
German. No. I know, it's conqueror of Germany, I know.
His first of many titles. Moving into the year 271, the Gefungi invaded the Po Valley. Now, the Gefungi were like a sub-tribe of the Vandals. And Po Valley was located in, I think, northern Italy. This meant Aurelian had to stop kicking the Vandals to go back and kick the Gefungi. Would anybody like to guess what happened?
He kicked the shit out of them.
He put his boots on, yeah.
He was ambushed and defeated by the Gefungi, who promptly kicked the shit out of him.
Oh no, they kicked the shit out of him. Uno reverse card.
This led the road to Rome open, and the Gefungi were like, oh, we can go sack that. Oh, big city, hell yes. However, Aurelian quickly recovered and then promptly kicked the shit out of them and drowned them at the Battle of the Metaurus River, where he saved his reputation and basically ensured that, everything was fine.
If they don't get to the Rhone, they won't tell anyone.
He drowned, like one by one, or...
He can't have been defeated that horribly just to have a force to be able to take them.
Essentially, I think it crushed a lot of the auxiliary troops, but it was more like he got away with the cavalry, and the cavalry was the important part.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for the Gefungi they hadn't been kicked and drowned hard enough, and were not deferential when they asked Aurelian for a peace treaty. So Aurelian promptly kicked the shit out of them at the Battle of Parva about a month or two later.
He was probably annoyed because he'd been beaten once.
And stole 20 to 40,000 of their fighting men and pressed them into service. It's like, I've beaten the shit out of you, and now you're going to fight for me. He then returned to Rome, where, due to his defeat, a lack of grain, and general corruption, a riot had broken out. Imagine that, a riot in Rome. Who knew?
Well, the Romans, I presume.
Must be a Tuesday.
These were known as the Mint riots. Rome had one of the dominant coinage centers, mint. I don't know what you call them, mint presses, mint
I thought
furnaces,
people would.
minty places. They made polo.
Imperial Mint. Yeah.
So it wasn't a riot over Colgate.
I thought. Yeah, I generally thought people were pissed they couldn't get Mojito.
They were afraid Aurelian might punish them for skimming money off the top and basically debasing the coins without his consent. They started a riot, backed by the senators and allies of Quintillus, who were still around, and promptly kicked the shit out of the urban cohorts, which were basically the in-city guard of Rome.
Yeah.
I love the idea that there's the Senate that's just that one badge guy that keeps coming back. Like, you may have bested me last time, but I'll get you this time.
Way at the end, and it always comes back, and then curses and runs off at the end, like every Saturday morning cartoon villain.
Yeah.
Aurelian turned up, and it's safe to say he was angry. So obviously kicked the shit out of them. He was indeed pissed about the mint fraud, and promptly shut down Rome's imperial mint and purged all his rivals and instigators. This essentially closed the door on any importance Rome had as a city at all. It ended up being turned just to like a symbol of power, but nobody actually went there because it was a hellhole and it had no benefit. Aurelian then instigated his most famous project, the construction of the Aurelian walls, which are still, parts of it are still in Rome today that you can go and see. These were completely unique in design because normally the walls would be built by legions and soldiers, but because there weren't that many legions and soldiers because everyone kept dying and there was constant war, he left it to the public to sort out. So it's unified only in the sense that they kept to the very, very basic ideas that he gave them. Interesting facts about the wall: it was 13.17 kilometers long, 3.5 meters thick. It was 8 meters high. Later increased to 16 meters high. It had 250 26-meter tall towers spaced around it, and 18 heavily fortified gates. Rome was now impregnable.
That was a really good wall.
It was a really good wall. Didn't stop the Vandals.
I am picturing the Attack on Titan walls.
It was big. It was real big, and it basically made sure Rome
So were Titans.
impregnable for about 200 years. Aurelian then got back to his reunification project by popping over to the Balkans and kicking the shit out of the Goths, who had turned up again and seemingly hadn't learned their lesson.
Why do they all appear in the Balkans?
The Balkans were not a good place to live. The Goths themselves were coming down.
Pick a point in time where they were.
The Goths were basically coming down from Ukraine and the Carpathians because the Huns had turned up.
Yeah.
Oh, Christ.
Looks like Venice is about to be born, boys.
It's thought that Aurelian actually may have killed a Gothic king called Canabudus at this battle, or he definitely killed one of the Gothic kings, but they think it was actually the same king who previously killed those two emperors I mentioned. So getting some, victory points for killing that man, essentially.
Yeah.
He tightened up the borders a bit by moving Dacia below the Danube. Which, just to explain, Dacia was a province. How to phrase it? So the eastern border of the Roman Empire followed the Rhine River and then the Danube River.
Yeah.
However, Trajan had decided that he wanted to take Dacia, which was like an area over the Danube, because it had lots of money in it. This basically meant that barbarians could just walk into the empire because the defenses were like river, 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 big pocket of land, river, river, river. So Aurelian couldn't abandon Dacia, so he just moved Dacia by essentially abandoning everything on the other side of the river and then renaming the little bit of Dacia behind the Danube as Dacia. It's really nice,
Dacia a bit to the left.
essentially.
I was just about to reroute a river. Fair enough.
He doesn't have time to reroute a river. Moving into the year 272. As mentioned previously, Palmyra was in control of the eastern side of the empire, and was now currently ruled by the highly capable Queen Zenobia, since roughly 267, when Odenathus had died, and she was ruling through her puppet son, which I've spelt with a U instead of an O. Behold,
Puppet
my tiny son. It shines bright.
Not puppet.
Yeah, I was thinking you meant puppet as well.
I was like, I'm pretty sure puppet does have a U actually.
My puppet son.
Her actions could very nearly have severed Rome's claims to the east. Like, the Palmyrene Empire, like that brief period of time it existed, is absolutely fascinating, and I might touch on that at some point in the future. But she had pissed off Aurelian by invading Egypt, and that was a big no-no. You didn't invade Egypt. Egypt was owned by the emperor, and basically made sure Rome didn't starve. But she invaded that, and then pretended everything was fine. Even though Aurelian was like, well, it's obviously not. You're sat in Egypt. You're there.
This is Rome. No, it wasn't.
She then used her agents and allies to essentially sway much of Asia Minor, which is like southern Turkey area.
Yeah.
To her side. This was not lost on Aurelian. And basically the moment he started marching east, Zenobia was like, oh, fuck, the jig's up, quickly. Let's make an army before he gets here. So Aurelian began by sending one of his generals to retake Egypt and secure Rome's grain. He then proceeded to capitulate all the cities in his way by reputation alone. Like, literally walking up to gates and going, yo, I'm here. It's like, yeah, you can come in, it's you. I don't like old sword in hand, he scares me.
It's all fun and well when you're like beholden to an empress from so far away, but the important thing is that he's here now and she's miles and miles away. Yeah. So what are you gonna do?
What was his other nickname? Hand on hip?
Hand on hilt, or sword in hand.
I guess that hand on hip just turns up at the door, does his pose, and it's just like, yep, let him in.
Don't forget Big Fritz.
Sword a little bit. This happened most of the way until he reached the city of Tyna.
Huge house.
Who were like, oh, we're close enough. Let's have a go at resisting. I'm sure it'll be fine. However, the city was quickly betrayed because, Aurelian had turned up, and nobody wanted to be ravaged by a Roman army who hadn't looted any
Ravaged.
However, unlike normal, Aurelian did not kick the shit out of them, instead choosing a policy of clemency, where he literally was just like pardoned everyone. This was essentially, I think it was a masterstroke, and I think a lot of other historians do. Essentially, the whole project was to unify the empire.
Yeah.
And if he'd just gone and killed everything, as he'd been previously doing,
the emperor would be fucked.
It would have been subjugation, not unification.
But also, he wouldn't have got that. There wouldn't be people to farm the fields. There would not be food, So yeah.
Aurelian knew what he was doing. The legend around this whole event is that the Apollonius, who is like the philosopher saint of that city, came to him in a vision and said, don't shed blood. That's bad. But no,
that's a big no.
Don't shed blood. You're becoming a cliche. Oh no.
By mid 272, Aurelian was at the gates of Antioch, where after he learned his general had retaken Egypt, he promptly kicked the shit out of Queen Zenobia's army outside the gates and absolutely crushed the cataphracts. Now, the cataphracts were... The Eastern armies didn't have a lot of decent infantry. It was a lot of levies as opposed to professional armies, except for the cataphracts, which were armored horsemen. Like
heavy cavalry. Nice.
Armored horses which could smash through anything.
Yeah.
So Aurelian did an old classic where he pretended to run away, tire the cataphracts out, and then turn around and kill them.
Yeah.
and then let the army mop up. He was very good at his job. Zenobia fled to Palmyra, and Aurelian took Antioch and got the Palmyrene treasury at the same time, so he could actually pay his men.
Great. And the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch. Yeah.
By late 272, he'd moved on to actually get to Palmyra. There was a tense battle outside where he tried to use the retreat tactic again, but it went a bit wrong. But he did succeed after like a bloody mess of a fight.
To be fair, he'd just done it.
Well, yeah. Like, hang on a minute. But it was close, and a lot of people like were panicking, like, "Oh God, are we going to lose here again?" Because previously the Emperor Valerian had been captured after a battle with the Sassanids, who were the new Persian Empire a couple of years back. It was not. The Romans were very superstitious. It was bad, and the fact Aurelian won the fight probably, helped just boost his prestige even more.
Yeah. Because he's literally going through and doing things that previous emperors have failed and died, and all kinds of things.
He then laid siege to Palmyra. Queen Zenobia decided that instead of sitting in a siege, she might run off to the Sassanids for help. But she was captured, and Palmyra surrendered, and Aurelian let his men finally sack something. Because literally they'd been going through Anatolia and Egypt and not sacked anything until they got here, and it's like, right, now you can sack the shit out of Palmyra.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, because, I mean, you'd technically be bringing wealth back to Rome in some way, and you don't want another big city to people to congregate around, so yeah.
He then took a little detour and kicked the shit out of the Persians, and then set off west of Gaul to reunify it.
Like the Persians just there, just turns and slaps them and carries on going. Just like, yep. What did we do? Nothing. Anyway.
Oh, by the way, fuck you too. What?
Moving into the year 273, unfortunately for Palmyra, much like the Jafungi, they hadn't learned their lesson. It immediately rebelled the moment Aurelian left, and proceeded to ask the local Roman leader, if they wanted to, get in on it, while simultaneously also setting up a revolt in Alexandria. The Roman general said maybe, and then promptly told Aurelian what was happening. Aurelian was busy kicking the shit out of the Carpi along the Danube when he heard, and went right back to Palmyra. The rebels got a shock when, instead of a year later, Aurelian turned up a few months later, and when he turned up, he promptly kicked the shit out of them and absolutely leveled Palmyra to the ground. He left nothing except, I think, a couple of religious buildings. And that is why we don't hear about Palmyra much anymore, because Aurelian made sure that it entered the dustbin of history and never came back.
That's fair. I can completely understand that.
He then kicked the shit out of Alexandria for revolting, and flicked the Persians on the nose again, hailed himself Parthicus Maximus, and went off back home. The Senate gave him the honour Restitutor Orientis, which means the restorer of the East.
Yeah, that's fair. Also, to Corby, at some point, if we do the edit, can you just take a list? Can we have like a timer or something that says "kick the shit out of"? I want to see how many there is at the end.
How many places did he actually kick the shit out of?
Yeah.
Too many.
Just how many times have I said it?
He's not done yet. He's not done yet.
Yeah, I'm sure.
By the time he got back to the west, it was 274, and he began the reunification of the Gallic Empire.
How long had he been an emperor at this point?
Really, he'd been emperor 4 years, coming into.
That's not bad at all.
Didn't really have to do much because the Gallic Empire had essentially been killing itself for the last 3 years, mainly because they, kept going through emperors and sacked their own capital for some reason. There was a bit of a fatalist mood there.
It's just like a mini Rome, just like father like son, just like Jesus.
It was currently governed by a man named Tetricus, and due to Aurelian's reputation, Tetricus didn't want to fight him and agreed to step down in exchange for his life. However, he couldn't openly step down because his men would stab him. When Aurelian turned up, they met in battle somewhere in eastern France, and sources debate whether Aurelian did or did not kick the shit out of them. There are 3 theories. Aurelian kicked the shit out of them in battle. Theory number 2, they surrendered and Aurelian did not kick the shit out of them. Or number 3, both of them happened. Tetricus stepped down, and then Aurelian kicked the shit out of the Rhine legions for being assholes. I'm going to go with number 1 or number 2 because I don't think Aurelian would kick the shit out of men just because he felt like it when he needed men.
Yeah.
Especially veteran units like the Rhine legions, because the Rhine legions were frontier defense troops who were like.
Aurelian turns up, goes to Tetricus. Right, I want you to go down in the 5th.
Regardless of what happened, the Gallic Empire surrendered. Aurelian returned to Rome and celebrated a triumph. And just for anyone who doesn't know, a triumph in Rome was essentially a big parade where they displayed their captured enemies and kings and queens and treasure and stuff, and then made sacrifice to the gods.
Yeah, all good shit, yeah.
Dragged out Queen Zenobia and in a set of gold chains. Dragged her along behind.
You've been dragging around for like a year now, haven't you?
Back to Rome on a boat, I think.
Fair enough.
Also dragged out Tetricus, displayed all the wealth he'd got from the east, and a bunch of interesting, cool animals. He was then hailed as Restitutor Orbis Invictus, the unconquered restorer of the world. Because, the Romans had a very high opinion of themselves, and the Roman Empire was the world in their eyes. It's a pretty badass name.
Yeah.
It's a pretty badass title.
Moving on to year 275.
Right.
When 275 rolled around, Aurelian set his eyes on kicking the Persians some more. He hadn't kicked enough shit
Really
out
hates those Persians.
He wanted to kick more shit out of them. The great Persian Sassanid king Shapur I had passed away. Shapur was basically the boogeyman of Rome for years because he was the guy who captured Valerian at that previous battle site.
Yeah.
Aurelian thought it was high time that they paid him back for that. Unfortunately, while kicking the shit out of some unnamed barbarians in Thrace, Aurelian was surprised in his tent and stabbed to death by his officers at the age of 60.
All right.
The officers had murdered him because they had been handed a death list written by Aurelian that included their names. However, this list was a fake and had been written by a secretary who had lied his head off about something very, very minor and then was worried because of Aurelian's well-earned reputation that he might get stabbed.
Written by who? Sorry, he buzzed a bit when he said
Secretary, like a local.
Oh, a
One of the
secretary.
secretaries lied about something very, very minor.
Oh, Jesus, I mean that's good plotting. That's good plotting. That worked well.
I'm gonna say it's not the return of the Senate, is it?
No. Needless to say, the secretary did not meet a slow death. The troops and officers were horrified at what they'd done when they found out. Like, Aurelian was by far the most capable man the Empire had seen in years, and he got stabbed to death because a secretary got pissy and panicky.
I mean, that's the problem with Rome. You could be like the most powerful person in the world, and then just one little thing happens and you're dead.
Yep.
It's so unstable. So unstable historically. It's so bad.
You say that, John.
Yeah.
Aurelian only ruled for 5 years.
Yeah.
But throughout all of the 3rd century, he was by far the most capable man around.
Yeah.
He essentially just, as everything was just demonstrated, beat the shit out of anything that came his way, and basically made sure none of Rome's enemies could do anything against Rome for probably the next 10 years at least.
It's a shame he lost that one time. Otherwise, he probably would have been ranked among like the list of undefeated generals, like Jan Zizka and Scipio Africanus and stuff like that.
It's like it's the only black mark on his record. That one, and that was because he got ambushed.
Yeah.
He was deified as Divius Aurelianus, and unlike previous times, his death saw an interregnum. Now, an interregnum, for those who don't know, is when there is no king or emperor because there is nobody to put there. But rather than nobody having a claim, nobody wanted to put forward their guy as the next emperor.
Replacement, yeah.
Because they were all terrified that the other side would think that they'd instigated Aurelian's death. And they didn't want to, essentially get stabbed for something they didn't do.
And it's step into very big boots, and also, let's face it, you're probably going to... I mean, this Emperor is not exactly the safest title in the world at the moment.
No. Eventually, Aurelian was succeeded by one of his generals, a man named Probus. who had an amazing nose.
That's probably why.
Yeah.
That's why it was called Probus.
Yeah.
He does a lot of probing.
Without Aurelian, it is more than likely that the Roman Empire would have collapsed under the weight of the 3rd century.
That's fair,
Like,
yeah.
even his predecessors, Claudius and Gallienus and ones before then, they were still so caught up in civil war and internal politics that they probably would have just been squashed by the barbarians coming in. And we'd probably be talking about probably the Gallic and Palmyrian empires and Roman Empire may have just stayed as the Middle Empire. But
Well,
it
I mean, the
never have
Huns were
been-
coming in, weren't they?
the
So, I
Huns
mean,
were coming as well. It would not have remained as the unified empire.
no.
And yeah, like I don't see why people don't talk about him more, because he's so vital. And the 3rd century is a period that people never talk about, and it's fascinating. So much happens in it in such a small period of time.
Well, I think it's because everyone's in love with the romanticism of the earlier Roman Empire and Republic.
Yeah.
Whereas when it gets to, like past a certain point of AD, people just stop caring,
Yeah.
which is weird.
Yeah.
I've
I
heard
will
the name
say, like,
already a
last
couple of
100
times.
years are a bit meh, because it's just the same thing happens again and again.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is the story of Restituta Orbis Invictus, the unconquered restorer of the world. Now we'll round you out with some interesting stuff that I couldn't fit in because it didn't really fit to kicking the shit out of things. So Aurelian worshipped a monotheistic god called Sol Invictus, and this was the god that he attributed his victories to. He saw Sol Invictus as simply every other god was part of Sol Invictus. They were a different aspect of him.
Oh, like Hinduism. Hinduism.
Kinda, yeah. Which is why he wasn't against, all other religions.
Yeah.
But this is thought to have laid the groundwork for when Christianity became the dominant religion. They were already so used to a monotheistic god that it wasn't too difficult to fully convert.
Yeah.
The cult of Sol Invictus celebrated something called the Feast of the Unconquered Sun, which was celebrated on the 25th of December. This is what we now know as Christmas.
Oh.
The Christians decided, I like that feast, let's use it and say it was when Christ was born.
How big was Christianity back in the 3rd century?
What was that, Tom? Corby?
How big was Christianity back in the 3rd century?
It was rising.
It was getting there, wasn't it? Because obviously, I mean, Jesus died somewhere around
It would have been
30
it won't be
AD,
until
some
the
shit.
4th century that it really starts coming into prominence, but it was big in the East.
Yeah.
Rounding off with the last few, Aurelian has a city named after him in France, the city of Orleans.
Nice. I've heard of Aurelian before, definitely. Yeah.
He also may or may not have been responsible for burning down the Library of Alexandria.
Oh, fuck's sake.
It is disputed as to who did it, because it's also... I'm thinking that it may have been burned down several times.
Can you just repeat that? I had a weird lag spike for...
He may or may not have burned down the Library of Alexandria.
Well.
And to round it out, just going to touch on a cool little fact. I don't know if it's cool, but a fun fact about the Emperor Valerian, who I mentioned a few times. When he was captured by the Sassanids, he was allegedly taxidermied and stuffed and put in their throne room.
Holy shit.
Wait, what was that? Sorry?
So when they essentially captured the Emperor Valerian, when he died, they taxidermied and stuffed him and allegedly had him in the throne room for years after.
Jeez. I know there was one that they made drink gold. That was the inspiration for the Game of Thrones nonsense. There you go.
And also, something I think most people probably know, but we get the word Vandal from the Vandal sack of Rome.
That makes sense.
Is my week done?
I like the Vandals.
Fact week even. I nearly got it wrong.
That's my week done.
Suck it, fiction. This is badass week.
Yeah.
We go from badass week to trauma week, probably. I don't know.
And then badass trauma week. I
don't know what happens in Tom's book, and I haven't decided on what anime I want to cover next. I should probably get on that.
Yeah, you got a week, it's fine.
There'll only be a little bit of trauma in the next one.
Well, regardless,
We've got time.
pluggables?
Plug it.
Do you?
Plug me. Plug me good.
Plug me like a dirty Victorian sink.
Oh dear.
My...
Plug me, old sword in hand.
Plug
My
me huge
plug.
hands. Sorry, I love that.
Oh,
I
please.
just love like the Germanicus Maxicus just makes me think of like big Fritz or huge hands. It just like really makes me laugh.
He ends up like, as well as Restitutor Orbis, Restitutor Orientis, he got, and you know, he had a bunch of titles over there, obviously Germanicus Maximus, Parthicus Maximus. I'm pretty sure he also got Gothicus Maximus for kicking the shit out of the Goths so many times.
Probably. I mean, fair play. Would have been, it'd be fine if he did.
Corby, Tom, plug yourselves.
After you,
Yeah.
Tom.
I have a Twitter. You can follow me at RandomJot, and you can watch my YouTube videos on Tom H. Jordan on YouTube, and you can read the comics that I make, Random Jot Comics on Facebook.
Disclaimer, for the YouTube channels, I have worked out how to put end cards on the end of the video, so...
Oh,
I've worked, so, like, now mine and Tom's YouTube channels are linked there.
those.
that's
on
good.
screen.
We'll still have to say obviously for Spotify, but yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, yeah, we're on Spotify. That's the thing.
I mean,
Jesus.
people listening to this probably know we're on Spotify.
There's probably some people who are on Spotify listening to this right now.
Well, not now, but yeah.
I don't know.
That'd be impressive.
mean, now
Who
when-
are you?
when
How do you
the-
get in my house?
Yeah.
That suit of armor.
Colin's fine.
Oh god, you've named it Colin.
You know it's been named Colin for like a year.
Does Colin subscribe to Spotify?
He bloody well should do.
He likes metal, you can tell.
Hey.
But-
Anyway, I'm also on Twitter. I'm normally the one that tweets these podcasts out, and Tom kindly retweets me most of the time. That's
Usually. Just because I'm not that active on Twitter, so...
I check it every now and then. I don't tweet my own videos out. I really should, but
Did you
anyway.
miss the big hack? That was funny.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, twitter.com at Gaius Nix, Guias, because I can't fucking spell. It's the same on YouTube, and on Twitch it is the Gaius Nix with an underscore between the two. Follow me for weeb shit.
Weebicus Maximus.
Yep. Oh.
What would our Maximus names be?
Oh god. Ooh.
Obviously, I'm, as you just
Weebicus
said,
Maximus.
Palmer's Strangst, Motherless.
Armicus Smotherus.
Clownicus Maximus.
That's Maximus. I mean, I don't think I can pick my own.
No,
I
I'm
don't
sorry,
get
I've gone back to Big Mitchell again.
I was trying to, like, just on the side, I'm like, what is Latin for to dig a hole?
Diggius
Biggest holus.
Diggus Holus.
Digus Gravus.
Diggus Gravus. Oh, John.
No, Digus Mortis.
Diggus Mortis.
That's good. Of course you know that.
Like a bad version of Rigor Mortis. Diggus
Digger's Mortis. The cops
Memento
won't stop digging.
Memento
It's buried itself.
But in digging, I'm stuck digging.
Yeah, you just can't. Your arms just do that in death. Like, this is problematic. It's just going across the graveyard. Anyway.
Anyway.
Yeah, John, do you want to take us out?
Yeah, there's a very quick fact. There's a thing called the Chichijima incident. Happened late World War II. Right. I'm going to say this because I can fit in the fact week. Anyway, also known as the Ogasawara incident, basically occurred in late 1944, where over the island of Chichijima, basically nine US pilots flew over. 8 of them got shot down after doing bombing runs. So only one of them. Well, actually, they pretty much all did. Only one managed to successfully avoid capture, and just purely by luck. And basically, the 8 that got captured or killed, basically 5. They all were tortured by the Japanese, especially. 5 of them were partially cannibalized.
I'm sorry, what?
By the officers.
Whoa,
Yeah.
whoa. John, we've had a pretty good upbeat episode, and you've just come in swinging with cannibalism.
No, it's because I'll tell you why. It's an interesting, very interesting fact. Anyway, the people who got involved did get tried for war crimes, obviously, and stuff. The officers involved, but the thing is, 5 of them were but not alive. They were dead already, obviously, but not great. Anyway, the interesting thing about this is our last pilot was basically kept safe by planes in the water, and eventually got rescued by a submarine. Where was it? The USS Finback, somewhere surfaced right in front of him. The pilot that was rescued and didn't know about this in 2000, didn't know about actually what happened to the other pilots until 2003, was President George H.W. Bush.
Wow.
President and father of presidents.
Can we name this episode Sudden Cannibalism?
But yeah, sorry,
No.
I just thought it was a very interesting thing that happened. Anyway.
Well.
Why? What's wrong with you, John?
Can't. Upbeat episode. It's all been war and murder.
I'll never forget the
It has all been
Japanese.
war and murder.
You can't say it's all been war and murder. Upbeat episode. I talked about someone being interrogated and tortured for a fucking week by the Gestapo.
Matt will never forgive the
episode.
Japanese.
He never will. We're
That's
done.
just what I'm.
We're done.
Yeah.
End.